Welcome to my podcast. Today's dream, tomorrow's reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'm going to share with you in just a moment, and I'm so excited to have her here. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment, ask a question, and to remember to like, subscribe, and share. And the reason I ask this of you is because I have amazing guests on my podcast, and I want to help them get their words out, their books out, their whole thing out as much as possible. And the only way I can do that is with your help. So that means for you to leave a comment, ask a question, like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. And this beautiful lady right here is Cindy Landham. And and the way I know her is that, and some of you that have been listening to my podcast or watching my podcast for a while, you know that I've been a hairstylist for many, many years. And I have a client who I was explaining to him one day when he was in getting his hair done that I had started going to health coaching school and things that I was learning, and I was going into the more of the mindset and all of that stuff. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I know someone that has a book that you might be interested in. And I said, okay. So I said, give me the information. And I found her book and I loved it because it went so much into the things that I was learning, but expanded it in a different way. And so I was so excited when as I started my podcast, it didn't even occur to me to begin with to even ask you, to be honest with you, Cindy, because you have this book over here. I'm a little lowly, just started my podcast kind of thing.
Girl.
And, and now I'm getting close to 100 episodes. So I'm really excited. I've had this podcast for not quite a year. And so I've reached a lot of people and had a lot of guests. And I got to thinking about it and I thought, I'm going to reach out and just see what happens. And here you are.
Oh, well, I am honored. Absolutely. I think I read the other day that most people that begin a podcast give up after like 12 sessions. So bravo, brave woman.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Right.
I will share really quick I went to a workshop with Stacy Lauren. She has the Do the Thing on Facebook. And it was a podcast challenge. And at the end of it, I said, oh, I'd love to have you as a guest on my podcast. And she said, well, when you get 20 episodes in, then I'll be a guest. And so I was really getting in those episodes so I could get her on. And she said that she just picked a random number because she said most people don't stay with it very long.
Right.
And she just wanted to make sure that I was dedicated to it. And so that's been almost a year now and like getting close to 100 episodes. So I'm super excited.
Love that. You're
Yeah,
unstoppable.
that's right. That's right. So do you want to just share a little bit about yourself other than, I mean, I know the book and I've got it right here for everybody to see. It's a little tattered and I've got little notes stuck in here everywhere.
I
And
love
so,
to see them tattered. I
yeah.
want to see them tattered.
And
Yeah.
actually there's some little stains on here from dripping my coffee and stuff on it, but that's okay.
Good. Mine has some tears in it too, for sure.
Yeah, there's probably those too.
Yeah. Yes. Well, this book just comes out of my story growing up, just kind of a normal kid, not really any weight problems as a kiddo, but once I hit puberty and my body began to change, my mom, who had been very concerned about her body and her weight, and she had struggled with weight her entire life, became concerned for me. And this was the early 70s. And at that point, the only thing anyone knew to tell you to do was to diet.
Right.
So our diet history began early. My mom became my food police, which we all know now completely backfires. Instead of helping me not eat, it upped my binge, it upped my sneaking, it upped my shame, it upped my anxiety. All the while, she and my dad, really, who's a physician, a good old GP, he was trying to help as well. And my weight just fluctuated wildly. Teenage years, young adult years, full-blown eating disorder, bulimia through college. And to make Reader's Digest version of this crazy food life, food struggle, about my mid 40s, I was creating another way. This happens. And if it does, it always brings me back. It hasn't happened often. Where did we, by the way,
Oh,
where
it
did I
says it
find
is recording.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
I can see that it is, but where did we get to before I froze or left?
You were saying that your dad was a physician and you were talking about your experience with weight.
Okay. So I'm not sure where we left each other, but it was a long struggle through teenage years, especially college. College was full-blown eating disorder, bulimia, the whole thing. And to really make this long story short, by the time I was 45, I had dieted and binged and lost weight and gained weight many, many times. And at that point, I was creating a weight chart, yet another one, and a voice in my head just said, you know what? You are never going to do this. Who do you think? Why do you think this one's going to work? And it was a moment, like it just brought me up short. It took my breath. And it was like this moment of realization that I cannot keep doing this. And it was such a weird feeling because on one hand, I was utterly devastated. I'm done because I can't. So it was this helplessness, hopelessness, defeat. But at the same time, I felt relieved that I had finally made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I promised myself a few things. I would keep walking every day because if I didn't, my depression would take over. And then I had this idea that I can eat anything now. I can eat anything I want. I'm never dieting again. And something about that freedom allowed me to realize I don't have to binge huge amounts anymore because I can eat anything I dang well please when I dang well please.
Right.
So something about, oh no, it says low network bandwidth again, girl. Hang on.
I can see you still. Just keep talking.
Okay, good. Something about that permission and giving up was the beginning. I thought it was the end, but it was the beginning of me having enough space in my life, enough open space for my body and my brain and myself to find something new.
Yeah.
I gained weight for a while. I just thought, well, that's sad. I'm going to gain weight till I die. But I'm not dieting again. I'm done. And lo and behold, after a year or two, I began to level off that slow weight gain and I began to actually release weight over time. And I would say it took about 5 years before I just began to wake up in the mornings and think, holy cow, I'm not thinking about food. I'm not thinking about my body. I'm not checking to see if I'm bloated. I'm not getting up in the morning and stripping everything off and TTing every drop out of my bladder to weigh. I'm doing none of that. So all that old pinch, deprivation, life of criticism somehow just melted away. And I got so curious about what had happened. Why was I free? Why was my mind free? Why was I not managing my food anymore? Why was I feeling more clarity of mind, more energy in my body, more freedom in my soul? And it basically was because I stopped dieting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I can share, my first diet was when I was in the 3rd grade.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'll just share real quick. I wasn't a fat kid either, but I saw my dad dieting all the time. Now, my mom was a little bitty thing, but my dad, he struggled with his weight. He wasn't that big either, but it was a struggle for him. And so he was at this time, um, he drank Slender. I'm sure you remember those.
Did that.
Yep. So I was only in the third grade, so I took it out of the refrigerator, this can out, and I thought, and I read it, and it said that if you replaced one meal with that, you'd lose weight. And I thought, oh, my third grade brain, I thought, oh, you drink one, you lose weight. You drink more, you lose a lot of weight. So I drank three and got in a lot of trouble for drinking my dad's drinks. But that was kind of the journey that I started, was constantly trying to figure out how to be better, how to be something I wasn't. And I was seeing myself not as who I was, but who I thought I was, right? Which is the problem with most people, right?
Yeah.
It's just sad that it started at such a young age, but it did.
Yes.
And I did a master class that I shared out at one point, and it was called Sweet Deception, and it was about the sugar in our food and how it's hidden in our food and everything. And in that one slide, I talked about how many diets I had been on, and there were, like, I know there's more of them, but I couldn't think of them because it's been a long time. But man, oh man, all the diets that when I wrote them up there, I thought, holy crap, you know. I had the binge eating thing where I would and the hiding of it, you know, I would go home and I was not real happy at home at that point. I was married and I had kids, but we were having a little bit of angst. And so on my way home, I would stop at Burger King and I would order two meals, and then I would pretend like they really cared. I would pretend one of them was for somebody else, you know, because I didn't want them to think it was all for me.
Yeah.
And then I would eat them on the way home and I would stop and throw the evidence away. So I really started packing on the pounds then, right?
Yeah.
And then another time that comes to mind is that I was raising my granddaughter as a foster child. And when they got her back, I would take her and drop her off, and I would have her some over the weekend. And when I would drop her off, she would cling to me and she'd say, I want you, Mama Yaya, I want you. And I would leave crying. And on the way home, every single time I stopped by Dunkin' Donuts and got some donuts, ate them on the way home, and stopped and threw the evidence away before I got home, because it was just my daughter and myself. And I didn't want her to know that I was doing this stupid thing. And so, you know, anybody that's watching or listening, you know, you may see some of that in yourself. And I will say that when I finally got to a place where I said, I've either got to make peace with being fat, which is kind of what you did, or I got to do something about it. And that's when I started searching for health coaching and went to schools and all of that stuff. And it was amazing. But I shared earlier today on a live that I did that when I first started that, I was determined that I was not going to diet. So if anybody ever said the words, you know, you've got to monitor what you eat, nope, not going to do it. And I was determined. And I will say I gained weight in the very beginning because because it's like you're so used to people telling you you can't eat it, that when all of a sudden you're given permission, it's almost like you're wanting to eat as much as you can before somebody takes it back away.
Yes, you have to trust that permission, and it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And usually people's nutrition is off just for a little while because they're wanting to test the waters and see if it's true. They really are going to give themselves permission to eat bad foods. But man, when we give ourselves that permission and we stop categorizing food as bad or good, even healthy or unhealthy, you know, any kind of category, how do you say that? Any categorization of food, turns it into a moral issue. And when we're not doing what is morally right in our minds, of course, we're going to feel shame.
Yeah.
So the shame, the deprivation, the rules, it all balls up together and backfires so badly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Thus,
I haven't talked to a person that had weight issues that didn't feel like they got to this place of just total despair. You know, it's like, now I don't know what to do. I'm so tired of this. Because we both know, and probably most people know, that 80% of the people that lose weight on diets gain it back within 1 to 2 years, plus more. And I
Yes.
kept really exercising that rule every
Oh,
single time.
me too. I mean, I'm
It
the
didn't take
poster.
me 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. And it's probably more than 80. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
just depending on who you read. And then we have to really get desperate enough and brave enough to do what is countercultural.
Yeah.
To decide that instead of deprivation, I'm going to give myself permission. Instead of trying to do this thing fast and extreme, I'm going to go on a pilgrimage and allow it to take time and shape me.
Yeah.
I am going to allow myself to live intrinsically instead of looking out here and living extrinsically.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow myself to give up rules and find the tools that work for me.
Yeah. Beautiful.
There are so many, and that feels scary at first. Like, my goodness, can I really do this? Can I really trust myself? And then you add to that.
And then you also think, not only can I trust myself, what are people going to say?
Oh,
when they're so used to me
say.
dieting. But the thing that drives me crazy now,
What?
it's like, if there's a drug addict around and they're not using their drugs, nobody says, well, why aren't you using your drugs right now? If you're an alcoholic, nobody says, what do you mean you're not going to have a drink with us? But you talk about food being a problem, and you suddenly decide you don't, for whatever reason, want to have a bite of this cake. People say, well, what's the matter? Are you on a diet? Is there something wrong? What are you doing? And they question everything. So then you start backing up. Wait a minute. Should I be doing this? Maybe it's not the right path. And it's amazing to me how people start putting their expectations on us, and sometimes we take them.
Plus the body shame. People tend,
Oh,
our entire culture feels somehow free and open to talk about each other's bodies.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got the body shame, you've got food everywhere, you've got extreme answers to everything, and you better be doing it right. This misunderstanding that change is a straight line. Once you make a decision, you're going to eat healthy, you better never mess up. When change, as you know, as a life coach, change is multi-directional. It's messy. And that's how we learn.
Yeah.
So all the things that we have felt ashamed of, once we just allow those to wash away and we begin to actually listen and live from the inside out, and allow ourselves to find our way. And there are guardrails. It's not like it's just the wild, wild west. There are scientifically proven guardrails. Right. For my coaching, in our membership, our online membership, I coach our entire community, group coaching, and one-on-one as well. But either one of those, there are specific frameworks that give us guidelines, but never rules.
Right.
We follow the 4 steps of mindful eating, and we don't use them like rules. We're invited into feeding ourselves when we're hungry, eating exactly what we want for pleasure and for health, both of those, then really enjoying that food, connecting with it, and then listening for when our hunger is satisfied and begin to stop at satisfied. And that's going to be messy. We're going to be sad and mad about it.
We're going to play with that left and right, right?
That's right. Those stumbles are our best school.
Yeah.
So when we've got this kind of framework and freedom, and you've got the support of a coaching community, all of a sudden what was horrible actually becomes fun.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the food being delicious and enjoying it, one of the things that I'll tell my clients, I'll say, I want you to go back and remember that movie When Harry Met Sally. And when she's in that restaurant and she is, showing him what an orgasm looks like in the restaurant. And this woman turns around and says, I want what she's having. I tell them, I said, what you need to do is you need to enjoy your food at that level. And if it's not that enjoyable, you give it a pass. Because one of the things that I learned with with being the eater kind of eater that I was if it tasted bad and it was a taboo, I ate it anyway just because it was taboo, you
Yeah.
know? And so if something was looked amazing, like I remember one time going to this bakery that had these gorgeous cupcakes. I mean, the icing was piled this high. They were big, they were beautiful, and it tasted like crap.
So many of them do.
Yeah, but ask me if I ate it. I sure as hell did. I ate the whole
I'm right there
damn
with you.
thing, right?
Yes.
And so to me, it's finally getting to a place where you become a food snob. So if
Yes.
it
And
doesn't meet
rightly
my
so.
expectations, man, oh man, I'm just going to let it go, and then
Yeah.
I'll go find something that does. So
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many clients really take on that, adopting that orgasm with the food, you know. And I had one client that told me, she said
Full
the first time
enjoyment.
she did it, she was sitting at the table with her husband. And she started eating, and he said, "What the hell is going on with you?"
That's full enjoyment.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. And that bespeaks our new respect for ourselves. Dieting is, at its core, it is disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's denying our actual body cues. And
Yeah.
it invites us to be body critical instead of body respectful. On so many levels, it is disrespectful to ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
beginning to say, you know, if it's not good, I'm not going to eat it. If I've got other choices.
Right.
Because Vicki, I can't tell you how many times I ate awful food because I was going to eat it all no matter what, because tomorrow I was going to start another diet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I had the Last Supper over and over again, you know?
Over and
Yeah.
over and over.
Monday was always my diet day so that I could,
Always.
and I probably put on weight between Friday and Monday just because I
Well,
would eat everything I never thought I would get to eat again.
yes, you're exactly right. And that cycle is what causes most of us to gain weight.
Yeah.
You know, we're dieting. If you want to gain weight, just put yourself on a diet. It'll happen every time.
Yep. 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 So I want to really quick, let's see. I got my book here, everybody. And so I wanted to read this little quiz thing for everybody. It's short, but it's at the
Mm-hmm.
first of the book, and it is so eye-opening. And so I hope
Mm-hmm.
everybody is listening and watching. But it's called Is Liberated Eating a Good Fit for You? If you identify with many of the thoughts listed below, you will find the message of liberated eating extremely helpful. None of us has to continue responding to food in this way. And that was like, oh, yes. So if you consistently find yourself too full after eating, have been dieting too long with little or no success, get a little sick just thinking about another diet, experience late night eating that feels out of control, sometimes eat in secret. See, I could click all these off over time, right? Are often ashamed to eat what you want in public, feel guilty for eating fattening foods, feel angry with yourself for disobeying a food diet rule. And I will tell you the one that's really been getting me lately, and I'll just share this real quick while I'm
Yeah.
sharing, um, is the one that says that you're supposed to eat 5 times a day.
It's just stuck in there somehow.
Yep, you're 5 times a day. You're supposed to eat. You're supposed to be 3 big meals and then the other snacks and all. And and it was like that. That doesn't work for everybody. It may work for somebody. I have no idea. But to
No.
me,
Well,
you're losing
for
the
somebody. But,
you're losing the eating when your body says to eat. So
There is
anyway,
no cookie cutter. There is no one size fits all answer.
that's right. That's right. All right. So I'm gonna keep going. Think about food way too much. Turn to food when you're stressed, bored, angry, happy. Yep. It didn't matter what was going on. I always wanted to eat. Aren't sure what it means to eat normally anymore. Over exercise to compensate for eating too much. And so many people do that. Have little or no energy for play or exercise. Think of food as good or bad, depending on its nutritional, fat, calorie, carb content. Feel hungry all the time. Feel like you have a food radar. Whenever you're around food, it's hard to ignore it. I used to say, And that's the list. I used to work at a grocery store one time, and I worked in the produce section, and we were right next to the cookie aisle. And I had to walk down that aisle to go get stuff to bring the supplies out. And I used to say that those cookies talk to me. When I'm going
Oh,
down that aisle, they're calling out my name. Have you tried this one? This
reaching
one's
out.
delicious. Yes, yes. I felt like it all the time, you know. And sometimes I would give in, and then I would eat the whole thing when I got in the car, and then I would feel bad about it, and I'd throw the food away. And then, you know, that it's such a cycle that we get ourselves in. And so I really want to tell you thank you so much for this book, because,
Mm,
you know, like I said, I was going to the health coaching school and was learning a lot of things. And this just kind of, from your words, was just exactly what I needed to hear. And so I've
mm,
told Chuck many times that I really appreciated him sharing the book. So I
mm.
did tell him that I was going to have you on the podcast. He was quite excited.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Me too.
So I know in the book you talk about a little bit about nutrition, a little bit about exercise, and um, and balance, emotional, spiritual needs, and everything. So if
Mm.
you had to summarize, why is this? Oh, never mind. My thing is trying to talk to me. Why? What is, if you could summarize, what would be like if the maybe two or three things that, like almost like the cliff notes maybe, so two or three things that if somebody hasn't got the book yet, because they can order it, and I will put a link in the description for the book.
Great. And I just created it in audio. So if if you want to walk and listen, you
Ah,
absolutely can now.
beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So we'll have that available for everybody. And then so the thing is if they haven't gotten the book yet, they don't have the audio yet, what can you tell them that maybe will help them in this moment,
Mm,
that until they can dive into all the information?
mm. I mean, the first thing I want to say is, however you're eating right now, it makes sense. There is nothing wrong with you. We eat in abnormal ways because we have been sucked into an abnormal food culture. Dieting is basically built on two pillars: deprivation and hyper control. And in human beings, deprivation leads to excess every time.
Yeah, yeah.
And hyper control leads to obsession. So we obsess about our food, we obsess about our bodies, we obsess about every little ounce of our chicken and ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the craziness, then you throw in family messages and a little trauma and all the other stuff that goes on living on this
Yeah.
planet, the glorious and the messy, then please know that however you're eating, there is nothing wrong with you. So let that sink in. Then I would say that we know it takes three things for us human beings to change. 3 R's. It takes reframing, changing our mindset completely. Our old mindset is not going to get us the new stuff we want, not going to get us the new life.
Right.
It takes relating to people on our same journey. This is why we have an online membership. So we can get in there, and be with people who get us. And then it takes repeating new patterns until the new ones are the new normal, and the old ones we're not even thinking about anymore. So I would
Mm-hmm.
urge people not to try to stop anything. When we try to stop overeating or stop eating late at night or stop eating cookies, when we try to stop something, we're focusing on it.
Yeah, it's like
When
saying
we
don't
know,
picture a blue elephant.
yeah, I just saw one,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. What we focus on, we get more of. So focus on how good you want to feel in your body. When I sit down to eat now, I'm not ever thinking about calories or carbs or any of that. I'm thinking, what is going to make me feel great? What and how much is going to give me the energy I want for the next 3, 4, 5 hours? So I'm going to be sitting at my desk. That's a little different than if I'm going to be chasing my grandkids around. So our eating can have meaning. Instead of eating to get skinny, begin to eat to feel awesome. We
Right.
know under eating makes us feel empty and drained. We know overeating makes us feel dull and heavy and tired. Neither one of those feel good.
Right.
So when we begin to really turn our vision inside and say to ourselves, darling girl, how do you want to feel? What's going to get you that?
Yeah.
You are worthy of that. So, lunch, sometimes I want to have a turkey sandwich with real mayonnaise and real cheese. I might want a few chips and a half an apple, and I might want a cookie. The next day, I might want a salad, and you can betcha I'm going to have real dressing and pepitas and cheese or whatever it is I wanted. We can eat real food when we begin to eat out of meaning and respect.
Right.
And not out of shoulds and guilt and rule following. It's going to backfire every time. Now, I know everything I've said sounds like, oh my gosh, this would be so great, but how in the hell am I going to make that happen? And I just want to then say on top of that, there is absolutely a path you can trust. We humans are very resilient. We can do hard things. You've already done a million hard things, and you can do this thing. And honestly, Vicki, don't you see this as a life coach? We get all scared about making changes. It feels like it's going to be hard. Change isn't really hard. It's uncomfortable.
Right.
Dieting is hard. You're straining and you're trying and you're just, it's almost impossible. You're pinched and holding yourself like this, just trying to obey and hold it in the road. Change is like, woohoo, this is going to be messy. This is going to be wild. It's going to be uncomfortable because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone that hasn't worked and I'm creating a new comfort zone, but it's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we've got people with us that understand us, when we've got guardrails that keep us from going over the cliff, it's a joy.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that I remind people a lot of times is that our goal is not to have the skinniest casket in the cemetery.
Oh.
Our goal is to be as healthy as possible and live life to the fullest. And so you may have a few extra pounds on your body. Who the hell gives a shit, right? It is just live life. And the main thing is like I was just having a conversation earlier. I had a hypnosis client, and it was like she kept telling me some of the things that she didn't want to be doing anymore. I said, well, then what do you want to do? You know, so we start looking at what do you want? How do you want to feel? And we visualize how that feels, because I even had her like sitting and imagining herself 5 years from today, you know, if she was eating for her body and listening to her body and doing all those things that we were just talking about, what kind of life would she have? And I told her, and she's getting a little older. So I told her, I said, I don't want you to focus anymore on the decrepit people that you see at the grocery store. From now on, I want you to start searching for the people that are doing extraordinary things at an older age. I said, if you look hard, you can find them. And I said, start focusing on them and, you know, just get in tune with your body. And it's because one of the statements that I hate the most, and it's probably because I'm getting older, is the thing that says, well, that's what happens when you get older. And I think, well, if that's true, if every single person would have it, and they don't.
No, and that's resignation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We do want to be realistic. We don't want to have magical thinking. I don't want to try to look 30 when I'm 66. But that is very different from resignation. When we allow ourselves to be resigned, we step out of our power, and then somehow we actually give ourselves permission to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're undermining. You know, we can all flourish, and that's going to look different for different people. I work with people who want to go to Orange Theory and they run marathons. And I work with people who want to feel like $1 million to be able to play with their grandkids.
Yeah.
They want to be able to get on the ground and stand up with a baby in their arms. Those are two different ideas of flourishing, and both are beautiful. So find what jazzes you, find what you can get excited about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry about what anybody else is thinking, because that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In
Because
our
we can, only
community,
thing we can control is us.
yeah,
And like when I was talking to this client earlier, it was just like right before I got on here with you. Um, she one of the things that she wanted to be able to do in the next 5 years is to continue to go hiking and biking and going camping and just traveling and all of those things. But she's had a few little issues. It feels like her health is not waning. And,
yeah.
she's adopted that thing about, well, when you get older, this is the stuff that happens.
Mm.
And I'll share, I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, getting old ain't for sissies. And I'm thinking, what the heck, Why does it have to be
Well,
that way?
life is not for sissies.
That's
And
right. That's
it
right.
is the gift of gifts. So,
Yeah.
it's both and. So
Yeah.
haven't you, Vicki, you've met people who are 30 and they're old, and you've met people who are 96 and they are just vibrant.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
much of it's between our ears.
I think
It's
all
how
of
we,
it's between the ears.
I think it is. And
Yeah.
it's the story we tell ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Over and over and over. The story we tell ourselves really matters. I know you'll relate to this. I work with people with a lot of health challenges, and some of them are full-time caregivers. So they're taking care of spouses or aging parents or special needs children. These women, oh my word, and a few men, are the challenges they live with are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they have determined that they're going to be unstoppable, that they are going to find a way. And we say this a lot in our community. There's always a way through, and together we'll find it.
Yeah.
And when you're telling yourself that story, you sit a little taller, you breathe a little deeper, you tell yourself what is empowering, because it is true.
Right.
We human beings are amazing creatures. So let yourself believe it, and start hanging out with Vicki. Start hanging out with communities that are going to help you know your own power.
Yeah. Well, because it is amazing to me how many people do give all of their power away. And, and I know this is not something that you touch on in your book, but you probably know all about it. It's epigenetics.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what your history says about the health of the persons that were before you, right? Because most of the time that was because they all had the same behaviors. Because we all have these smoking guns or these loaded guns in our bodies for everything, right? And it's just whatever you do in life is whether or not you pull the trigger. And so to me, getting out of this diet mentality and constantly depriving yourself, which you're starving your cells, you're starving everything in your body, your brain. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Your mind blowing.
Yeah.
How all of this works out, and people just assume that because Sally Joe has diabetes, oh, I'm going to have diabetes, and so they're looking for it. They're looking
Yeah.
for it,
Yeah. Right.
and yeah, and so it's just giving yourself the permission, like you said, to get in tune with your body and stop letting the world and all of its things tell you what to do. Because let's face it, if diets worked, there wouldn't be millions of diet books.
Well, we would have all been thin a long time ago, and you and
Yeah,
I would not be sitting here talking about this.
that's true. That's true.
They simply do not work. As you were talking, I was thinking, it's not just resignation that is an enemy. I don't like that word enemy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's also fear.
Yeah.
I can turn around and look at my family of depression and holics, and thank goodness each family, if you look back, you see different things that you're like, oh, I don't want that cancer or diabetes or insanity or whatever it is. The fear of that, then remember what we said, you and I said that what we focus on, we get more of.
Yeah.
So fear, we have to move that fear out of the way. And that usually takes some help and support.
Definitely.
And instead, we're aligning with what we want. We're aligning with the gift of our life, not looking back and being afraid of something. So I really encourage you. I know you and I both encourage anybody listening to ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to live? How do I want to feel? What's going to get me that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'm unstoppable. Then all I have to do is find, okay, what kind of support, what kind of reminders, what kind of people do I want to be doing life with that are going to keep me aligned?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm always telling people, the reason you need a coach is because we can't, and excuse me for this, but we can't see our own shit, right?
Right.
We're
I have a
going,
coach.
yeah, I do
I
too. We're
absolutely.
going through life. We've got this expectations of what's going on. We see what we see that's right around us, but a coach has the ability to be up above and look down and say, "Wait a minute, you're about to go over that hill over there, man. If you just take a right, be smooth sailing. You don't have to do that." And so
Mhm.
I think, like I tell people all the time that it's so important to have a guide, somebody who has been there, knows what you're going through, that can help you, because there's
Mhm.
not an athlete alive that does really, really well that doesn't have a coach. And that same
Absolutely.
thing goes for people. I mean, you get to the CEOs and the people of this of big corporations and everything, they have advisors. They may
Many.
not call themselves a coach,
Yeah.
but they have them. They have people that help them to see where they may be flawed in
Mhm.
what they're thinking and everything. And that's what we need as
Mhm.
people. That's what your book did for me. That's what me going to
Mhm.
health coaching school did for me.
Grateful.
It was because I would hate to see my life if I hadn't made that decision.
Mm.
And the
Can you imagine
best,
still being stuck in that diet
I
cycle
know.
of diet binge over and over, and that critical judge that lives in our head when we're in that life?
Yeah. And but the thing is that every now and then I'll pop back into it.
Well, of
Because
course.
yeah,
Yes.
because so I don't want people to think that just because I'm saying these things, I don't ever have a second thought or a struggle or catch myself, because I had somebody was inviting me to come out later this year to a photo shoot that we were going to do. And the first thing that popped in my head, well, oh man, I better really start watching what I'm eating, and I need to go ahead and start. And I thought, oh, what am I doing? No, you'll be
Mhm.
fine. And just be you and
Yeah,
keep doing your
this is
thing.
the real me here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's funny, how we can
Mhm.
habitually, even though we've gotten so far away from it, we can habitually pop back into those places. And so
Mhm.
I guess I'm saying that so people know when they're listening that if you're still in that place where it's popping in all the time, that's
Yeah.
okay. Give yourself grace, right?
Right. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes growth. And
Yeah.
so it is a growing process. I would say I've been in recovery 20 years now. And it's rare, but every now and then an old pattern will raise its ugly head and, whisper something in my ear. And now, of course, I can recognize it. I'm not
Hmm.
going to be broadsided by it, but it's so interesting that all these years, 2 decades later, after 30 years, 35 years of desperation, still I have to keep reminding myself. I read my own book. I hang out with people, my community all the time, and they think I'm the coach. Girl, they're coaching me.
Yeah.
We are holding each other in the life we want.
Yeah.
We are not going to get well alone. I just don't know anybody that gets well alone. We are built as humans to belong.
Yes, definitely. That's why these communities are so amazing. You get around some like-minded people like my community on Facebook. What I like to say is that they're all over at my house. We're sitting in the backyard around a campfire and we're singing Kumbaya. We're just, we're all there for each other. And it's just
Yeah.
beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Because especially, after COVID, people got so distanced from one another
Mm.
that it's even though we're not in the same space. Of course, you don't live that far from me. We need to connect. We need to get together.
Yeah.
But the thing that these technical things do for us is they give us the ability to be inside each other's space without actually being inside each other's space. And so it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is. It absolutely is. Boy, as you're just talking about the power of community, I am thinking how we live in such a distracting world now.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, I have taken my online workshop, and I've chopped it into 5-minute audios just so, because our lives are more full, our minds are more distracted, our time seems to be so limited. I try not to say I'm busy. I try to say I'm purposeful. But, it just feels like we don't have the margin of time we used to have when you and I were kids. It was a slower paced life. And I am absolutely, everything you said is true. And I am changing the way I coach so that people in this new postmodern era or post-COVID era, I think we should say, because it has changed us, can absorb it as affordably, as easily, as quickly, I hate to use that word, but as time efficiently as possible.
Yeah. It's when you're talking about the time, it makes me think I had this one client, and she was a caregiver for her mom. She was doing all these different things, trying to sell her mom's house and get everything. So she was very stressed and she didn't have any time. And so I told her, I said, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get you some time. So I want you to just take 5 minutes a day to just think. She said, oh, I don't know where I'll find it. I said, do you ever go to the bathroom? She said, yeah. I said, okay, one of those bathroom visits, you're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. I don't care if you sit on the toilet, you sit on the side of the tub, or you wash your hands for 5 minutes. But for 5 minutes, you're going to do nothing but spend time with yourself. And after, I don't remember how long we worked together, but after a little bit, she was actually taking long weekends and taking some time for herself. It was like just by finding that 5 minutes, she was able to see how that felt and expand it. And I think that we, as humans, we've kind of get so far away from, taking that time for ourselves and playing with it. And that goes into what you were just saying. Everybody's so busy. And I'll be honest, I had a course that I'm doing. And one of the things that she asked one day was, she said, so what is your go-to excuse when it comes to things? And I said, time. Time is the reason that I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not going to do this, and all of those things. And so I sat back and I really thought about it, and I thought, now time can't be the reason for all of that. There's got to be something else. And so I realized that it's just become the go-to phrase when I don't want to do something, or it doesn't seem important enough to me, those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
I'll use time as an excuse every single time. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's amazing.
It's kind of revered, so we feel like, okay, I'm not wasting my life over here. I'm really busy. So it feels validating, but it's really squeezing out the life we were meant for, and the life our spirits long for.
Yeah.
And we can have, when you said that, the bathroom, it reminded me that my online membership is called Food Freedom in 5 Minutes, for the very reason that people can honestly just listen to it while they're getting ready in the morning for 5 minutes, or getting ready for bed at night for 5 minutes. And it also reminded me of something else. When we do something, a tiny step, just a tiny step, very often that, just like your client, it opens the door. Then she went from 5 minutes to a weekend.
Yeah.
We'll walk 1 block. Before we know it, that feels so good, we'll walk 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a year, we might be walking a mile, or 5, yes, moving in that direction and realizing it doesn't have to take a lot of time.
Right. Yeah. So beautiful, beautiful. So thank you. We're getting close to time, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate everything that you've shared, and I really appreciate you taking the time to write the book.
Oh, Thank you. I needed to, and there are many stories in there. This book is many people's stories, and their stories need to be told, and they give us hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give us hope.
Yeah.
So thank you, Vicki. This has been an honor. And I feel so full that I feel like I've been random here. I've just talked about a million things, but I get so excited.
Yeah, me too. And I end up going off on a rabbit hole,
Yeah,
chasing a rabbit over here, going
yeah.
down the rabbit hole or doing something and end up getting so far away. But I feel like I like doing this intuitively. And I feel like we're having a conversation sitting in my living room, and I wouldn't care whether we were staying on task then either. So it's like, let's just do this thing, right?
Yeah, we're just, the keynote is hope, isn't it, sister?
That's right. That's right. So thank you again so much. And I'm going to leave everybody with one of my favorite quotes. The best way to predict the future is create it. So just think, what are you creating? And with that, I will say farewell. Mwah.
Farewell.